Association reunion for 1994. Denison University, a Christian college of liberal arts. This is where the reunion will be held on the campus here. This is the main street of Granville. The cross street right by that church is the other main street. There's 4 churches, one on each corner. The one in the foreground is the one that our ancestors helped start. Now this Hoffman Hall is where registration and food services. I'll swing around to the right. And at the far end of this concourse is Crawford Hall. And that's where we're staying in the dorms there, and the family rooms are there. There's a registration desk right here.
Here's the registrar, so
and then we pick up the key in the linen right here.
Did you get the signs put up? Good. I think that's so
I was concerned about getting
Okay, this is Crawford Hall. This is the dorms that we stay in. Got 2 family rooms. The only bad thing, I don't have air conditioning in the rooms.
All of this material from Arthur E. Linnell and Aunt Mary and the Whitleys.
General announcements first. There have been there's information being passed out to you. The one list, and I don't pronounce things very well. The one that Rachel made, there's 2 sheets of those who have deceased since the last reunion.
I will be reading those.
Yes. And then the other one is an agenda for this morning, and it says 10 o'clock. You notice that we've been kind of running a little bit late all the way through the morning anyway. Prior to that 10 o'clock agenda, though, we do have a speaker this morning, and wanted to get the agendas out to you. If you have something to add, we would like to add it as we start that meeting, and that'll be in 20 minutes or so. So that we can kind of stay with this agenda. If you have something you really want to bring up before the association, we will certainly handle it. But let's stay as close to this agenda when we get into our business meeting as we can. This morning we're very fortunate to have a speaker who has a background in local Granville history. He is a former professor here, former retired professor here from Denison. Discovered that he came from the great state of Illinois prior to coming here. But he has a presentation for us this morning on Granville history, and I'd like to introduce at this time Professor, and I forget the first name now, Chessman. Wally? Thank you.
G. Wallace.
G. Wallace Chester.
G. Wallace. Terrible. That's George Wallace. My parents, when they named me, didn't know what was coming up. I want to welcome you to Granville, to this New England village set down in the middle center of Ohio. I have a number of things in my hands, and I want to put them around where I can get at them. I'm going to walk around a bit. I'm not going to stand. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me there in the back row? Good. Very good. I passed out, or tried to pass out to you, a map. It has two sides. If you didn't get one, there are more up here, there, and over there. In so many ways, this is still the village that your family knew and loved in the 19th century. And it's that New England village that I want to talk about today. You arrived here by car, I wager, over paved roads and streets. That's something that the sons and daughters of first settler Joseph Linnell and his wife never experienced. Nor did they have electricity, or telephones, or public water and sewer supply. Think back on that a bit. But they did have access to a canal that we no longer enjoy. Canal that went to Cincinnati one way, and Cleveland the other way. And from Cleveland, you could go on to New York. If they went to nearby Newark, moreover, when I mention Newark, Newark is this black spot here on your map of Licking County. It's the biggest city in the county. This, by the way, these are all reproduced from an 1866 atlas, when the sons of Joseph Linnell were still here. And I think the daughter is still here too. I do it because this is the first good reproduction of what this county and this township and this village looked like. If they went to nearby Newark, they could catch a passenger train which was going to Pittsburgh or to Columbus or to Cincinnati. That's something we can't do today either. Indeed, Granville today is without any public transportation. Back in 1890, and that's after the Linnell sons died, but there were some Linnells still here, as you're going to find out. Back in 1890, we had one of the first interurbans in America, between here and Newark, and then it went to Zanesville and Columbus. And when that electric interurban gave way to buses, in the 1920s, you could still get to Newark or Columbus easily. It's only in recent years that that convenient service utterly stopped. And today, the only public transport to Columbus is a park and ride that leaves from West Newark about 7 in the morning and returns about 5:30 in the afternoon. And that park and ride is not in Granville Township, it's over West Newark. Is it any wonder that Denison sophomores and juniors and seniors who are allowed to have cars bring them here if their parents can afford it? And many of them can. Indeed, About one half of the student body of 1,850 men and women have cars, and you've seen the parking spaces around. We really need them. Come in, please. Parking spaces. Boy, we've got parking spaces. The only trouble is it's hard to find a place to park that you can get to Harris Hall. So let's look at that 19th century Granville. That's what brings many people to settle here today. And what we really fear, those of us who have lived here for some decades, what we really fear is the prospect of 4-lane divided highways coming from Columbus to Granville. They're in the works. It's going to ruin this town if they come. Well, that's progress. The migration to Granville back in the early 19th century. Who came and why? The first whites who came were probably revolutionary soldiers seeking some land. We don't know much about them. They were squatters. They didn't have title to the land. They hoped to get it. But then came Welsh settlers from Pennsylvania. They came in 1802. They had bought 4,000 acres of this area. This was a part of the military district. They bought 4,000 acres in the northeast quarter. If you picture Granville Township like that square, they were up in that section up there. Finally, we got an organized company from Granville, Massachusetts and Granby, Connecticut. Their land out there was giving out. It had shallow soil. Their population was growing. The prospect of fertile land here across the Alleghenies was very attractive. There were settlers from Granby that had gone in 1803 to Worthington, which is a town just above Columbus. Many of you may have come in through Columbus. Worthington is a town just above Columbus. It's to the west. When you look at Licking County, it's to the west here, the next county over, Worthington. Spies went with that group to look out for what was available. And when they got back to Massachusetts and Connecticut, they said there was some good land right here along Raccoon Creek. Raccoon Creek is the title of that stream that flows through, and you can see it on your map of Granville Township down there beneath that square or rectangle there. Isn't a square. Rectangle that represents the village. You can see Raccoon Creek down below us. So, they formed a licking company, September 1804. 107 members in it, including Joseph Linnell, who was then 49 years old, who paid $10 in order to register with the others. I think he's from Tolan, Connecticut, but there's some dispute on where he was from. This company that was formed, the Licking Company they called it, they took licking from this area as a title. They bought 28,000 acres in this U.S. military district, 27 miles east of Worthington. In March of 1805, an advance party of young men came to this area as representatives to plant corn for those who were coming later. Included there was Joseph's oldest son, Elkanah. 23 years old he was. Then that fall, they came in 3 family groups. And Joseph Linnell was one of those leading the 3rd group. 25 in that group, 18 children among them. They made around 16 or 17 miles a day. 52 days it took them. Rachel's story you have, because in what's been distributed to you by Rachel, you've got the story of what happened here as they traveled. Bethia, was it?
Bethia.
Bethia, chasing her hat. Yeah. The Linnell group arrived on the 9th of December, I think, late in the day probably, of 1805. The next morning they bid. They'd been waiting anxiously for them to arrive because there had been 2 parties came before them. They bid for 288 town lots. And you can see what Joseph and his son bought if you look at what Rachel has handed out to you. If I can find it. This represents what was half of the sale of land within the village, okay? There's another half to it. But this is the half that has the purchase of Joseph right on Pleasant Street and where it crosses Broadway. And you can also see Elkanah also bought 1 little lot. Joseph bought 1.5 acres approximately. He paid $34.20. Worth a lot more now, what he bought. The next morning, they sold off 120 100-acre farm lots. Joseph and his son acquired a lot about a mile south of the village. You can see it on your map of Granville Township. You can just see it in there, Linnell. Should be J. Linnell. Look down here. It's just about a mile out of town. It says R.R. Linnell. Why they used R.R. I'm not sure, but this is all the way, you're looking at 1866 atlas. You're not looking at what it was when they bought it. Okay? But that's the land that you're going to visit. It's the Linnell homestead, just a mile south. You have to climb a hill out of the village, and there it is on the right. Very attractive building. Yes, Rachel.
That R.R. is Reuben Rose Linnell, the grandson of Elkanah, of Joseph.
Thank you very much. Did you get that?
Yes.
The house they would build there in 1823 you're going to visit. It's 2464 Lancaster Road West. All right, the early years, quickly. Government was organized. They had an election in 1870. Elkanah was clerk of the election, and then he took office as township constable. The first sawmill went into operation in 1870. The oldest house still standing is that of Elias Gilman, 1808, which Joseph's son Joseph would purchase in 1860. You can see that on your map of Granville. It's up here along Water Street. You'll see his name. The first schoolhouse was a log cabin. Indeed, everybody had to cut down a tree and live in a log cabin initially. Had to wait for the sawmill to get some frame lumber. Knowles Linnell, Knowles was one of the first teachers in that first schoolhouse, which was right there where the Broadway and Main intersect. That's the center of town. Indeed, as you look at this, you can see that this is a New England village. Although New England villages often have a green, this one had a crossing, and you can see the four churches right there. The first church was there too, where the schoolhouse was. Congregational, it soon became Presbyterian. Joseph Linnell and his wife. And what do you use for her name?
I say Zerbia. Zerbia.
Zerbia. Zerbia. It's hard to read on that little, in the yard of the Presbyterian Church. If you stop and look at it, there's a list of those who were the initial subscribers back in 1804 actually, for that church. And that was put in during the centennial celebration in 1905. They were among the 27 signers of this church's organization. That was on May 1st, 1805, and their names are on the scroll of the Presbyterian churchyard, which was erected at the centennial. Their daughter, Bethia, of course, would marry the first minister of that church, Timothy Harris. The first tavern, yes, they drank. The first tavern, Deacon Timothy Rose. That was a cabin at first, right there in that intersection, such as it was then. Then he moved it to a frame building on the southwest corner of Pearl and Broad. Today, that's a site of the Methodist parsonage. Rose's second daughter, Samantha, would marry Joseph's son, Joseph Linnell, in 1828. It's too difficult to follow. I hope not. Too many names, and I know that, but I've really learned a lot I didn't know. The first war that occurred, 1812 war, Knowles was enlisted in the Ohio Militia, second corporal, and in the Granville band, I don't know what they played, but Elkanah played the bassoon and Joshua, another son, played the oboe. They weren't wounded. They got their instruments back following the surrender of their general. They went up to Detroit area, Ohio Militia. So what's the development of this town? I'm going too far. Sorry. You get farming with Joseph and Elkanah out there in their farm south of the village. You get industry without steam. You get a furnace that starts up. There's a stream called Clear Run just outside the village going toward Newark Centerville Road. They used water power from that little stream in order to operate. A grist mill. They had a tannery there. Klaus Lane, which is south of that Centerville Road, just about half a mile out. Klaus Lane, there was a woolen factory there. Well, the Linnells got involved with little industry too. Knowles, for example, as you know, got into clockmaking. He also operated the furnace and the tannery for 2 years in 1838 and 40. Joshua had a hammer mill. He made mustard out there on Centerville Street on Klaus Lane, which was just off the south down toward Raccoon Creek. He grew the mustard on his Berg Street farm. Finally, transport develops. The Ohio Canal had a feeder that we used. The National Road, however, is 6 miles to the south of us. If you came in on it, you didn't come in on 40, you came in on 70. 40 is the old National Road. And the railroad, of course, went through Newark to the south of us, didn't come through Granville. No railroad through Granville until 1880. All right, There were 4 churches that were founded. Jacob Little came in as a minister following Harris. There had been a difficulty over the Ahab Jinks who had followed Harris, and I'm not going to get into it. It was very difficult because it split the church and it led to the founding of the Episcopal Church. What happened was that Ahab Jinks had some people working on his house on Sunday morning. It was the end, fall was there and winter was approaching, and he just felt he had to get that house worked on. So he was preaching, and they were all saying, "Oh, did you hear what he was doing? We saw those men on his house." Schools, a number of schools, and I can't get into all of them, but Granville Female College, you can see on your map of Granville, is down there where the Granville Inn now is. It operated, Granville Female College was congregational, and it operated until 1898. And then it had to shut down. YLI, Young Ladies Institute, which you see at the other end, is the lower campus of Denison. Today, it was a Baptist institution, started up in 1832, just after they had founded the institution that became Denison. So you get female seminary here that becomes a part of Denison later. The Granville Literary and Theological Institution was the first name of Denison, then it becomes Granville College, and finally Denison University. It was on a farm, a mile out toward Columbus. Today, Middleton House is there, part of Denison University. Well, all this was going on in Granville, farming, industry without steam, and so on. And then in the early 30s, they had a drought and a flood and plague, and that was when Joseph Linnell died. Although he died in January, I believe, which is before a lot of these things took place. So he, having been born in 1755, he was a pretty old man by this time. And he may have died of quite natural causes, I'm not sure. The anti-slavery movement, I wanted to say something about because the Linnells really get involved with that. Granville had been, in the 1820s, they favored colonization as a solution to the slavery crisis. In other words, ship the blacks back to Africa, Liberia. This was to avoid conflict because they could see that the North and the South were heading towards some sort of a conflict. Granville people, being a little conservative, tended to favor that solution. But in 1835, an abolitionist named Theodore Dwight Weld came here to talk, and in the basement of a frame building, the Academy building we call it, which is just down Main Street, he held a meeting there in the conference room in the basement, and the guys, people who wanted to protest, threw eggs in on them. Eggs. That didn't bother him. Theodore Dwight Weld was used to that. The next year, 1836, the first annual convention of the American Anti-Slavery Society was held in Granville. 200 delegates, 100 spectators. They met just outside the village, in the township, on a farm, in a barn. But when the meeting was over, they had to come back through the village. And the guys that didn't like them were waiting for them. I don't know what you call them, rednecks or something. The people who didn't like the anti-slave people. The men and women students were there from the college and from the girls' school. And they were walking. And in that day, there was a boardwalk in front of the stores there on the north side of Broadway. But that was so crowded with people that they had to walk in the street. It was quite muddy. When they get to the corner of Broad and Main, they're lying in wait for them because they've got to go on a kind of a bridge, because that's where the water drained down the hill to Raccoon Creek. And there was kind of a little bridge right in the center of that intersection, if you can believe it. Well, they started pushing and shoving and banging, and pretty soon there was a real fight. They pushed women off, men off. Well, it was the Granville riot. Following the riot, Granville moved toward abolitionism, away from colonization. Knowles Linnell, I think, had favored colonization, and I don't know whether he moved as far toward abolitionism as some others did, but certainly he did. I think he became a moderate abolitionist after that riot. And in that house that you're going to visit, I do believe that when the Underground Railroad took off, passing through Granville, up to Overland, and on into Canada, where slaves were transported secretly, or not so secretly, for those who knew what was going on, transported north to freedom, that Underground Railroad, I think Knowles Linnell got involved with it. Certainly Joseph, the son, did get involved. His house off on Centerville Street, which is about a mile out, was a definite place where slaves escaping toward freedom were housed on their way. Well, the anti-slavery movement certainly was an important part of the next 2 decades leading down to the Civil War. Civil War, for those of you who can't remember your history that well, takes off in when?
1861.
1861, very good. I think there are a lot of historians here. Granville's other problems, however, were more immediately pressing. The town didn't seem to recover its economic promise that it had had. In the early 1830s, the bank failed. The furnace shut down. Important leaders moved west. All this was occurring in the late 30s. There was a nationwide depression, actually, beginning about 1837. The effects were felt up at the college. Indeed, by the early 1850s, because Granville seemed not to be going anyplace economically, and because the transport as passing by, going through Newark or even to the south, some people said, why shouldn't the Baptists move this college, which had been founded as a Baptist college in 1831? Why not move it someplace else in Ohio? We wouldn't be sitting here, of course, if they had succeeded. But the area rallied round. Probably the Linnells were a part of the rallying round because they didn't want to see the college leave either. And they raised money, and raised enough money that the Baptists of the state said, okay, go ahead. You can continue to be our Baptist college. Well, they had very great difficulties until after the Civil War, when the endowment began to go up, and supporters from Cleveland and Dayton and Cincinnati put the college in a much stronger fiscal position. And the Baptist women college below the hill became more and more involved, with one woman even becoming, taking all the courses that a man would have taken up the hill. So that by 1889, Grace Lyon could have qualified for a Denison degree, but they awarded her a Shepherdson degree and said she did complete all the courses that a Denison student did. 1900, that was set to rights. The two institutions merged, and Grace Lyon got her Denison degree. Linnells are here too, just briefly. Edward P. Linnell. He's one of 9 members in the class of 1871. He was a non-graduating member of that class. And he stayed on in Granville, out on that property that you're going to visit. He was a dairyman. His son, Edward P. Linnell, your father, he's class of 1912. And I was able to put together from Denison records a little summary of him with his picture. This is from the Atticum, which is a student publication of 1912. Edward P. Linnell was a classical graduate. He belonged to the Franklin Literary Society. He also performed in Richelieu, according to my reading of the record. And I'll just read, have I got a second? Linnell, why yes, the name's familiar. Years ago, he used to entertain the freshman math class and almost gave them mental lockjaw. When he smeared the blackboard in Gill's, that's Gilpatrick was the teacher of math, the blackboard in Gill's class. What he's been doing in late years, besides ushering in the Presbyterian church, nobody knows. But some of these days, the folks out in the little red brick house on the Lancaster Road will be proud of him. Well, I think you have been proud of him. He became a minister, and they followed him in the Denison alumni records. Edward P. Linnell, this is in the alumni catalog of 1920, pastor of the Presbyterian Church of Wendell, Idaho. And then in 1971, the Reverend Edward P. Linnell, class of 12, AB, 717 Neal Avenue, Columbus, Ohio, Reverend, retired. That's our last official record of it. Today, Denison has become Granville's major industry. Owens Corning Fiberglass and Dow Corning both have research facilities. They moved them in here in the 1960s. But essentially, Granville is a bedroom community today. It's quite service-oriented. I'm glad that you can be here. I don't know how you enjoyed your accommodation. We don't have air conditioning in those, Crawford, I don't think, do we? You need to bring a fan. But then usually when they were planning Crawford as a building and other dormitories around here, they didn't look forward to school in the summer. That's it. I leave these books around for people to look at.
We'd be glad to take care of
Delighted.
them.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We'll probably move them to the family room then.
And the family
Yeah,
room.
we'll get more of
These
those.
are Granville books that were used in your research.
Very good.
Thank you.
Somebody had said to me earlier that we could announce to the younger people who are in the room that if they wish to leave at this time, they could, but I don't know why you'd want to, because there are some interesting things going to happen in the next, half hour. And I don't think that our meeting will take much longer than that. Each of you received an agenda. And just to move that second item up of introducing the agenda, you can read down through that. I don't need to repeat it for you because I assume all Linnells or Linnell descendants can read today. Is there anybody that has any items that they would like to bring before the group at this meeting? And if so, we'd like to add them to the agenda now so we have it. we haven't had.
Yes, I'm Andrew Linnell. I'm wondering if we ought to add an agenda item about the reunion frequency, and perhaps looking at whether it should be 3 years or some other frequency.
Very good. We will, maybe right after Jack's item, reunion 97, let's put it in there. And that we have discussed this. We have not come up with any conclusions. What might happen is a survey of everybody and see where we do stand on this. But I think that's a very appropriate thing. Rachel, do you have something?
That was my question, that we had talked about doing a survey so that everyone could express an opinion and then determining from that what would be the best kind of solution. And your thoughts could be put on that survey for a helpful identification.
Andrew, would you prefer to have some discussion on it? Or if we go ahead with the survey, does that answer your concern or problem, or should we listen to what people might have to say this morning? One thing we want to do is we do want to control the length of time. We can get out of time.
Mr.
JC.
Chairman, are there any more copies of the agenda?
Yes, didn't everybody get one? No. I thought they were, excuse me. Have a few more. Sorry, I didn't. I just thought there were enough given out that they would get it. Thank you. Are there any other items?
By the way, the survey should be fine. Rather than having a discussion here, survey will be
If
fine.
you'll notice, I'm going like this occasionally. For some reason, I walked out without my hearing aids this morning. I have a problem. You need yours worse than I need mine. So we've discussed this before. What I wanted to do is just briefly say a little bit about the last 3 years. When we met in Minnesota in '91, the Linnell Family Association was in very difficult financial straits. You may recall that we took a collection after the program on Saturday evening, and the generous Linnells contributed about $900 to a free will offering. And when we completed that reunion, even that money was used. However, the growth or the progress of these last 3 years has been very encouraging. If you recall in a newsletter after that reunion, and I know that there were 5, but I can only remember 4. I set some goals for us. And the goal was to increase the membership, which would help take care of the financial difficulties that we had, that we would encourage the republication of the book of Rachel's, The Descendants of Robert, and that we would hold a board meeting of the steering committee prior to the next reunion. And I'm happy to say that those 4 things we did accomplish in this last 3 years, and particularly in the finance, and Judy will give you some update on that, and with membership a little later on. But I think the general cooperation of the group has just been tremendous on this. And we need to go further with it if we can, but it has been very, very encouraging. I think probably Andrew hit the one concern that we all have right now, and that is the number of attendees at this reunion. But Denison tells us that every group that they have here this season or this part of the year has been down in their projections of who they thought were going to attend. Is the nation going that way, or are we going that way? What is it? We don't know. Let's get into the reports then. Ladowska Elliott minutes. We had minutes of a reunion 3 years ago. We had minutes of the board meeting after that reunion, and we had minutes of the board meeting in Granville, not 92, but 93. Wadaska? Yes, Hal.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we dispense with the reading of them minutes in order to hold the meeting short. They're on file at the,
There was a motion from Hal that we dispense with the minutes. Second up here, what we can do is have those minutes on file over in the family room, and if you'd like to take a look at them, they will be there. Motion to dispense and made and seconded to dispense with the reading of the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary. Motion carried. Thank you. Treasurer's report. Judy. I don't even see her.
Would you like to do the same thing with the treasurer's report?
Well, I think maybe we have a little more interest in treasurer's report and the one that follows that membership, because they kind of tie together.
Okay.
Get down here, Judy.
I have a balance sheet here we can hand out. Somebody, will you get them going that way? We take these over the other side. Take a few to Rachel.
This is
Very simple. We run on a straight cash basis. We don't do accruals. I do have some information as to what bills we have outstanding, but you won't see them in any kind of a form like this because, like I said, we run just on straight cash. This is what has actually come in and what has actually gone out. This covers the last year. We do it this way so we get the reunion included, and it is as current. This is when you will normally see this thing, so we like to close it out around the reunion time, so it's current. Rather than go through this piece by piece, I would just ask that you take a look at it. If anybody has any questions, perhaps I can clarify some things. Questions? Katie, you must have something.
No, you did such a good job. It was excellent. It's all here, clear, plain.
Dick and I, as we met in Columbus, some of the officers have kind of gone over this too, and so they should be a little familiar.
I think the only thing that I might like to add to it to clarify something is it says under the DRL book that we have $8,000. That is what we have paid on the book. We have a final payment on that yet, and we're not sure exactly how much that's going to be. Various things in it. We paid more than what we had to pay each time, hoping we could build up a little bit, so we'll find out that bill has not been presented to us yet.
You print about sales of the book since the 18th.
Rachel, can you give us a sales update? She will do that a little later too, I guess.
Maybe you'd like to know right now, though. We have sold 140 books so far out of 500 copies published. We have to sell 400 books. I'd like to be 4,000, but we have to sell 400 books before we're able to break even. The last 100 books will be profit for the association. So we still have a bit to go before we can pay back the association for the money that they have put up front in order to publish.
I'm going to buy another copy.
Rudy, speak up a little.
I'm going to buy another copy again.
Thank you.
To donate
Very
to
good.
the New York Public Library. And I
Great.
think for those who can afford it, I think it's very helpful for other families to find us and for other families also to connect there, do their research. If you have a local library or a university or institution library anywhere near you, they are very grateful to find these things because they're privately printed. They're not something you come across unless somebody walks in and says, look at this. And it would also help support the association.
Dan has had his hand up.
I just wondered, Rachel, if you
looked into advertising or listing it with things like the Genealogical Helper or the Clearfield Company or the Genealogical
It will be
Publishing
listed
Company?
in the Genealogical Helper, and the publisher actually does that for us.
Sure.
We have not proceeded to do any more than that at this time yet. But your information of where it could be listed would be helpful to us so that we can do that.
We moved out of our financial report a little bit because Rachel was going to report on book. Maybe we've covered it somewhat now, so if you have any other questions, let's wait till Rachel comes back on book. Any other on the financial?
Just another clarification, we have sort of two funds going up. Rachel is handling all the funds on the book. So that, I think it's an $1,800 balance. It's down there on the bottom. It says we have cash on hand. Rachel is handling that money. The one that says West 1, bank savings, West Bank checking, those are the funds that I handle. Those are the general funds for the association. If anybody would like to verify that my figures on the bottom of that are correct, here's the most recent bank statement, balance. So I didn't make copies for everybody, but they are available if you want.
Anything else on the financial?
I have a couple more things. We're going to move on a little bit. Like I said, this is a cash system. We do, however, still have some bills outstanding, things that have come in, mostly to do with the reunion, things that I didn't know what was going to be the cost. I didn't make an awful lot of these either, so if you wouldn't mind sharing them, it would be helpful. I think I'll have about, 20 or 30 of these. So if you share them with the person next to you. Somebody want to hand these out to me again? Find them on the back. I'll run these over the other side.
Sure.
Take them over the other side. And just, you'll need a few. Some of you may
Be
not
sure
be
that Ladowska gets one.
extremely interested in.
Be sure Ladowska gets a copy of it, so she has it for her.
We just need you to know what, what I'm going to do with the money that's left, and I will have no trouble spending it at this point. Some of these are estimates. The rooms are an estimate. We don't really have a final bill from Denison. We don't have a final bill on the meal. And as Dick said a little while ago, we don't have a final bill on the book. So these are estimates.
Judy, are we solvent or are we in the hole?
I was just going to make a comment. I think the encouraging thing about this was that we felt comfortable enough with the money that we had on hand when we met last summer to commit the association to back the publication of this book. You know, you're talking about a $12,000 expenditure for an individual to be doing that Rachel and JC had done at one time for us. I'm not saying that they spent $12,000 to publish that first book, but they spent a considerable amount of money. And it's just very encouraging that the association is going to be able to handle that this time, and we're not going to have a problem with it. And when we get money back, we're going to kind of say, we're a non-for-profit organization, what are we going to do? So we'll take care of that problem when we reach it, which may be a couple of years down the road, but we'll be fine.
Yeah. There are some sales that are going on. I mean, people are continuing to buy books, buying t-shirts, different things at the reunion. So there is a little deficit at the bottom of this thing, but we aren't chewing our nails. So I think we're going to be fine.
Especially compared to the last few years.
Absolutely.
This is
That's
like
good.
that problem.
Yeah.
Do you want me to? Oh, I'm sorry.
and
Just
Andrew?
one little question, which is the seed money to start the next reunion.
We're fine.
It looks like from this balance sheet where you might just barely break even.
Well-
But that'll exhaust all the memberships and that kind of stuff.
One thing that's not on here is income, because it's impossible to guess. I mean, that would be
We
a
have some.
total guess. We can estimate about $2,500 a year for just annual memberships. That's what will come in. So the seed money will come back. As the book is sold, there's $5,500 out of the general fund that has gone to help the publication of the book. We anticipate that will come back into the general fund. So we're fairly comfortable with
I
what
think
our receivables are.
the other thing, Andrew, is that between now and the end of the year, there's only one newsletter is an administrative cost. And really the newsletters and membership drive mailings and publications have been our expenses. the rest of us have kind of absorbed an occasional phone call or whatever. So it's worked out very well.
Other questions, comments, whatever? The last piece that we have, and again, if you'd share these, I was robbing the copy machine at the hotel in Columbus, so I didn't want to take too much advantage of them. And this is the budget that and it is simple. I mean, you talk about simplicity. We got 4 lines on the budget here. This is a 3-year budget because we won't meet again as a group until the next reunion.
Oh, yeah.
So we've just combined it. This will give you a little bit of an idea of what we anticipate our expenses to be. Along with this part of the reunion, and obviously this $3,500 is not our total reunion expenses, but Jack is going to get into that later when we start talking about when we're going to do the next reunion.
They're the fixed costs.
These are, yeah.
Fixed costs of the reunion.
Things that I have I think anybody wanted all of that. Things like the printing. I mean, printing for this reunion it ran almost $900 this year. I mean, there's a lot of stuff printed, a lot of stuff. A little bit of planning, souvenirs. We've got $1,500 in this budget for T-shirts, pins, placemats, that sort of thing. So, and these are pretty much based on this year's costs. Some money for filming, and we don't really know what's going to be involved. Wherever we are, if we have to rent equipment, what's going to be involved. We want to document the reunion again, so there will be, I'm sure, another video. Things like refreshments, name tags, decorations, just odds and ends that go into this $3,500. We have, Dick, do you want me to do the proposal on the registration at this point?
Sure.
We're proposing that for the next reunion, that we sort of change a process that we've had in the past, and that would be that those members who are in good standing, and that would be life members, of course, because that's your membership is obviously paid in advance, and anyone who continues to pay their membership, it will be for 95, 96, and 97, which the next reunion is. If your membership dues are paid, there will not be a registration fee. That we feel that coming out of the dues that are paid, we'll be able to handle the registrations. So that's a proposal, and that will maybe be encouraging for people to come to the reunion, as I've had some comments about registration fee. People feel it's high, and oftentimes you don't really realize what goes into that fee or what it pays for. But we hope it will also encourage people to pay their dues and keep them up. So that's a proposal. Any questions about our budget? We send out what, 500 newsletters? Do we send out 500 newsletters?
Right now, the
600.
last mailing was 600 on the head, and it's been running between 575 and that 600, and it fluctuates because the movement of Linnell's sometimes gets difficulty in keeping that mailing list up to date, and of course Rachel is the one that keeps up with that.
Okay, of those 5 or 6, somewhere between 500 and 600 members, approximately 100 people pay membership dues. So we feel that the response is we'd like it to be higher. And along with sending out the newsletters, we do send out a membership. We've decided that a membership drive or separate letter for membership goes out. It has received pretty good response doing it that way. So we hope to encourage, or maybe you'll encourage other members of your family to support the organization as well. Anything else? Questions?
I'd like to
I got all your money and I spent it all.
I'd like to ask a question right here and maybe get a response from our group. We are making a proposal
So put
I
that
guess,
into a motion.
a resolution. I'd like to see that into a motion and see what the group thinks about what Judy just said about our dues. If you are a paid-up dues member, there will not be a registration fee for the next reunion. Rather than us just taking it on our hands, I see a hand up here. Mark, you'd like to make
I was going to second that. I think that's a good idea and might encourage.
I'd like to have the motion come from the floor rather than from me. So you made the motion?
I so moved.
Was that hand up there, Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, I was going to make the motion, but,
Well, one way or the other, whatever you want to do, Ludaska. One of them made the motion, one seconded it.
Mr. Chairman, let's clarify that a little bit further. That if the person has paid up dues for the years, what, 90?
The 3 years, 1995, 96, and 97.
Yes, I think we should clarify it that way. That there will be no registration fee for the 97 year.
Right.
We'd like to just try it. I mean, this is not, we'll see how it goes for 97, but that's what we'd like to propose at this.
And I will make that motion.
If we don't, we'll pass the hat again. No,
We got it.
sorry. Shouldn't have said that.
Want to call? Oh.
Ruth?
I have a question. I don't know whether you can answer it or not. Do you know offhand how many, say in the this reunion and the last one, non-dues paying members paid?
We could do that in time, but I don't have that information. We could find that, but I
You're
don't
right, we
know.
can't directly answer that question right now. Most of the people that come to the reunions are dues
Yeah, that's what
paid. They may not have paid every year. There's been some gaps in that. But pretty good. Don?
In support of this motion, I'd like to assure you as a financial economist that the life membership is grossly underpriced. Buy one before they catch up.
Thank you.
Exactly what I did.
Thank you. We'll have something on that in a moment.
How much money did we take in for registration for this reunion?
Well, where's your?
Registration.
It's one on your sheet.
See, it's hard to bring that just out because that registration includes rooms and meals. And when you talk about fixed costs for the registration and registration costs, you're talking about two different things. You're mixing some stuff there.
How much of the reunion income was registration is what your question is.
How much are we saying now that we might be giving up?
Oh, I see. Like this one?
25 times 40. Probably half of it, a couple thousand.
Yeah.
25, probably 25.
Let's say just grab a figure. I was going to say a couple $1,000.
But
That's on every 3 years of, right, what we have been doing is $2,500 to $3,000 a year in dues. What we've been collecting.
had we not published the book, we'd be fine. I mean, that's where our funds went this year.
Any more discussion on the motion? Anybody need a repeat of the motion? We know what we're voting on? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you. Judy, anything else on? In reference to what Don just said then, if there's I have no other questions. What I'd like to do right here is read a list, Judy just gave me one of them again, of the life members. And anyone who is a lifetime member of the association, I'd like to have you come down front for just a moment. Those that are in attendance. There's some of them that are not here. If it's difficult for you to get down in front, be sure and raise your hand and we'll get to you. Larry Linnell, Rachel Linnell Wynn, Reverend J.C. Wynn, Roger Hanson, Bonnie Hanson. Will you please come down front if you can? Richard Linnell, I'm here. Paul E. Linnell Sr., Albert T. Linnell, Althea, and I always mispronounce her name. It rhymes with Tribune. Robert C. Stevens, Ruby Patel, Ladaska Elliott, John Elliott, Linda Baum, Carol Linnell Alcima, Barry Westerwick, James Linnell, John Jack Linnell, Dennis Linnell, Mark Wynn, J. Andrew Linnell, Brian Linnell, Ruth Burns, Don Linnell, Dean Smith, Vivian Linnell, Hal Bakovich, Carol Fritz, Thomas K. Jones, Catherine Boychuk, Mark Linnell, and Donald Swanton. Don't move away. Stay where you are. What I would like to do is to present each one of you with a Linnell Family Association pin that indicates that you are a life member of this association. And thank you very much for contributing to and helping with the advancement of our association by becoming a life member. Those who are not in attendance today will receive one of these in the mail from us so that they have that recognition also. What it says on it is Linnell Family Association. If you've seen the big banner, it is a replica of that with life member across below of North America.
Get him on camera. Star. Get him on the camera. Get Hal on the camera. Come on, Hal. Keep going. Stand by Dick. One more, a little more, a little more. A little more. There you go. Okay. I would never have him on there.
If you know someone else or in contact with someone else that is a life member, I would be glad to have you deliver the pin for me.
Those, you want
I'm sorry.
The future of the pins?
What?
The future of the pins?
Oh, yeah. Now, if any of you wish to make available to yourself one of these life membership pins, if you want to see Judy and buy a life membership, we'll see that you get a pin.
We also consider the fact that actually the life membership is now free. All you have to do is pay $125 for the pin.
Is that the cost of a life membership?
I'm sorry.
Which 100, well, is it, yeah, 150, isn't it? 150?
What?
How much is life membership?
125. And Don said it's too low. Our next report is historian, newsletter, book, Rachel.
Can I do this? Can I put things on top, or is that all right? One of the things that a historian has an opportunity of doing is to continue to relate to and write letters to people who have become very important to us. You can't hear?
No. It is on.
Well, that's wonderful. You'll hear me a lot better with that. I was saying that one of the things that's important for a historian to do is to continue to relate to the people who are a part of our association. One of the sadnesses is that we lose members through death at between each reunion time. There is a necrology that has been passed out to you, and I would like to read it through to you, all of the names, if you would follow them. We may have missed some people, and I hope that you will be able to tell me about those after this list is read at a later time. James Ward Anderson, 30 March 1994. Marion Black, 16 June 1992. Jack Burns, 31 August 1991. Nancy Cowan, 15 March 1994. Brian Vincent Decker, November 1992. Howard Donnelly, 23 March 1991. James T. Ferguson, 19 May 1993. Velma Linnell Fisher, the date is unknown. Betty Johnson Heilig, 18 January 1992. Marjorie Barker Henderson, 17 October 1990. Richard Barker Henderson, 1993. Dorothy Linnell Johnson, 2 June 1993. Ida Linnell Kimball, 1987. Alvin Moores Linnell, 1 July 1991. Clarice Sloan Linnell, 22 December 1993. Evelyn Mortensen Linnell, 14 October 1993. Felicia Leeds Linnell, 5 October 1993. Floyd John Linnell, 12 June 1994. Frank Linnell, date unknown. Gloria Stewart Linnell, 15 May 1992. Jane Elliott Linnell, 26 October 1991. Louise Bailey Linnell, 30 December 1990. Lloyd Guy Linnell, June 1994. Margaret McKay Linnell, 2 January 1994. Pearl Houston Linnell, 13 October 1992. Reith Smith Linnell, 28 June 1991. Richard Lee Linnell, 22 October 1992. Sadie Linnell, 25 September 1990. Thomas Helmers Linnell, 25 July 1990. Wallace Buck Linnell, 19 February 1992. Wallace Linnell Sr., 20 December 1990. Alva Lee Lowe, William Robert Linnell, 9 March 1994. Alva Lee Lowe, 16 September 1993. Elizabeth McConnell, 13 June 1991. Matt McCluskey, 16 July 1988. Jeffrey Thomas Porcaro, 5 August 1992. Jean Dion Powers, 14 July 1993. Sidney Rosebold, 7 May 1992. Lawrence Shepard, 22 February 1993. Marvin Soderlund, 3 April 1994. Easton Taylor, 24 May 1990. Louis Tintoff, 16 May 1991. Harriet Morris Whitney, 13 December 1988. And I have 2 names to add. Iris Linnell Soderbeck, 21 May 1994. And Opal Linnell Goodsman, 1992. Will you bow for a moment of prayer? Dear God, for these precious cousins, for their memory, their inheritance to us as ancestors, for the blessing of their presence through the years, we give thanks and praise. Amen. We have 5 living members who are in their 90s or close to 90. And I'd like to read their names to you. Dorothy Ulrich was born in 1898. Hazel Jolander was born in 1901. Winnie Linnell was born in August 1901. Mildred O'Neill, who you may remember as the oldest person in our first reunion, was born in 1903. And Alma Linnell Anderson will reach her 90th birthday on the 31st of December of this year. For these we are grateful. Those of you who received your book already, I want to tell you that there are some errors in it, mostly typographical, I hope, but I didn't give you out the errata sheet yesterday. And I would like you to pick these up today to go with your book to be able to make corrections. My fingers on the typewriter keys did not always hit the right numbers. And you'll find some people who were born 20 years after they died. And that's really not appropriate. So do pick up the errata sheets. I'd like to read my report to you of the newsletter publishing in the last 3 years from JC and me. I must say that I can write a news article, but when he gets through with it, it may not resemble what I started with. And for that, it's probably a very good thing. The publication of the Linnell Family Newsletter has gone through several transitions in the past 3 years. The time of reunion gives an opportunity to evaluate the process, the content, the timing, and the cost toward improvements that can be made for the good of the association. We published 6 issues of the Linnell Family Newsletter in the past 3 years, 2 issues each year. The process currently has worked this way. JC and I gather information, write and edit the articles. We send them off on a disc with a mock-up of a plan for the 4-page paper to Dick. He sees through the printing and mailing. I keep the mailing lists up to date and send a disc with this information so labels can be printed and attached to the newsletter in Illinois. We're making some headway in getting current addresses for our mailings. Last November, only 20 newsletters were returned, either with forwarding addresses or with undeliverable notation. In April of this year, only 15 returned. 3 years ago, there would be around 50 for each newsletter mailing. Please, please, please send a change of address for yourself, for your cousins, for your aunts, for your children, whoever, but send any changes of address so that we can try to keep them up to date. In the last 3 years, our articles have fallen into 9 categories. The largest number of articles, 18, were articles about family members, with 35 members mentioned in a major way, and additional family also included. 10 articles concerned association business, including a letter in each issue from our chairman. While the actual number of articles used to recap the last reunion and promote the next one was only 10 compared to 18 about family members, the amount of space that we used was probably equal. In addition, there were 4 articles about the book, The Descendants of Robert Linnell, 3 articles about the Quilt Project, 2 articles about Linnell family history in general, and 1 article about doing family research and writing. Our vital records have been detailed each time with totals of 32 deaths, 58 births, 27 marriages listed. This record in the newsletter is the only plan we have at present to keep our Linnell family history up to date. We welcome your ideas to make this publication meet the needs of the association in an even better way. We're dependent on our members for information for our vital records and especially for the events in your lives that should be shared with our readers. Please let us hear from you. In order to glean helpful ideas for you, we have a questionnaire that we ask you to complete and hand to John or Clark. We're going to pass them out right now, please, at lunchtime. That doesn't give you much time, but we certainly do want to hear from you about your reaction to our newsletter. And this will help in our planning for the future. We do have an exciting announcement that will come in the nominations report about the future of the newsletter, and I'm not going to say that information myself at this point. I do want to make a correction, though, on something that Mr. Chessman was saying this morning. Much of the information about Granville, the homestead, the downtown of Granville and so forth that we gave to you in your packets were the research of Susan Hickman. And I don't know if she's here this morning, but I do want to say that that material was gathered by her. It was put in a different format because of the way that we were going to be using it during the association meeting, but I really want to give credit to her for all of that work. In completion, on the matter of the book, you will see in your book that the copyright for the descendants of Robert Linnell is granted to the Linnell Family Association. And this I have indicated in this little form to give to our secretary as a part of our record. It is given at this reunion. But because the book has in it that I am to be responsible for granting permission to copy or print or reproduce, that has also been added to this information for the period of my lifetime. We will also, I would not do that myself though, but only in consultation with the steering committee of the association. This is for the association. And I think that completes my report.
I hope we haven't taken all of Al's thunder away from him, but Al, do you have a report to make on the reunion?
Well, the importance of brevity weighs heavily on my mind, and although I had prepared a long, fascinating, and joke-filled report, I'm going to disappoint you by cutting it short. The basic facts are these. When we first started projecting the number of attendees, we used figures from the first two family reunions and projected a possible enrollment of about 200. We have 87. That's the bad news, and now the two bits of good news. The first bit of good news is that we are not going to take up a collection. The second bit of good news is that we're leaving you with a deficit. Now, the reason that is good news is that you should consider how unfortunate it would be if our treasury were filled to overflowing and you had no new goals to achieve. So, with all good wishes to the next chairman of the Linnell reunion, we wish you luck. That's it.
We didn't steal your thunder at all, Al. Maybe I can insert something here that over in the family room, you will find additional t-shirts. You'll find the opportunity to order a sweatshirt if you wish. You will find additional reunion pins that are for purchase. And even though I'm jumping the gun a little bit, I still think it might be appropriate. They aren't there yet, but we can have them there. At your dinner location this evening, there will be a placemat that will be yours to take with you. We have additional copies of those placemats in view of the kind of planning we made that will be for sale, and those may be also purchased in the family room. So if you're looking for a set of placemats about the 94 reunion, they will be available. Next report, reunion of 1997 at Barnstable, Jack Linnell. Jack?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
these copies, what should be done with them? Should we collect
Sure.
them now, or should they be put on the table on the...
She indicated she'd collect them at lunch, but
Johnny and Clark will give them to John or Clark, who passed them out.
as you're leaving the auditorium,
At lunch?
okay, at lunch then.
At lunch.
No, not at once, that's too hard to carry them.
Well, but some people don't have a writing device, so they can't have them filled out before then, so
Sorry.
we'll try to do it at both places. Don't try to change things. Jack?
We accountants always have.
Yeah, we'll collect them here.
When you go back home, pull out your calendars and look to 1997 and write down 3 dates, June 27th,
Jack, use the mic.
28th,
You want to use the mic?
and 29th.
You want to use the mic?
When you get home, drag out your 1997 calendar and mark the dates, June 27, 28, and 29. We're going to return to Cape Cod and going to the Holiday Inn in Hyannis. It has all the rooms that we want to use, the social rooms and the entertainment room. And included in our package will be, let me see, Saturday lunch, Saturday night dinner, Sunday morning, the breakfast, continental breakfast. As you know, the last couple of years, a couple of reunions, we have gone to colleges, and the room rates have been easy to get along with. The Cape has nothing, no kind of a facility like this, but I found a place which has everything we want and has the best rates, I think, possible, and they're going to hold them for 1997. All right. Well, the 2-night package, single person, $192. For a 2-night package, like for 2 people, $220. For 3 people, $267, and 4 people, $304 in the room. This is a charge for the room, not per person. And included in it are all taxes and gratuities. So I really don't...
Will you clarify that meal situation again? Is that included in that package?
That's included.
Meals again?
It's lunch on Saturday, dinner Saturday night, and continental breakfast Sunday morning, which is what we had on the first reunion at the Cape, and that's what I asked for. One thing I did not ask them was about children, and I will inquire when I get home in the next newsletter if there's any change in this as far as children are concerned. Will be in it. If there are no questions, I'm looking forward to seeing you on the Cape.
What were those prices again?
Oh, okay. For the room, for a single person, 2 nights, $192. For 2 people in the same room, $220. For 3, $267. And for 4 people in the same room, $304. That covers all the meals and everything for the 2 days. Now, if anybody wants to come just for 1 night, it would be 1 person, 115, 2 people, 152, 3 people, 190, and 4 people, 227. That's if you want to come just for 1 night. I hope you don't want to come for 1 night. I want you to come for the reunion. Yes?
Is there camping close by for those that want to bring their trailers?
I will find out. I am sure there is in the area. Well, somebody did when we were in Hyannis before, and we're not very far from where we were. Yes.
There's one in, there's a big Camp and Booster, which is about 20 minutes.
Nickerson?
Nickerson.
You can't make reservations.
Well, maybe you can make reservations. I think actually I think you can. They've just changed it. I think it's made it available. It's a big park, but it gets very full.
Do we have costs or meals, just meals then?
That's the room and the meals.
So I mean, if they're just coming for the meals, they have their own camper.
In other words, if you just come for meals, I think you can get them a la carte. I think. If I find out otherwise, I'll let you know. So there is that.
Any other questions? Bob?
Do you have some particular program theme plan, or are you still working on it?
We have a...
We need a volunteer to do a program. Oh, Rachel said no. Excuse me. Sorry I spoke.
We have two people, Wendy McDonald and Connie Gates,
Very good.
who I'll be very happy to meet sometime today.
Yes, will those two people stand up? Gates, Connie?
Wendy's not here.
Wendy's not here?
Hi, Connie. Here's my report, but I can make you one up there.
See, the president doesn't always know everything that's going on. Yes. Why don't you step into the nomination?
Nominees for the steering committee for 1994 to 1997. Chairman Dick Linnell, Vice Chairman Robert S. Linnell, Secretary Carol Jean Anderson, Treasurer Judy Speld, and hotel arrangements myself, program and activities Wendy McDonald and Connie Gates, and for the newsletter Kay Soderberg. Excuse me.
Like come on again? You've heard the report of the nomination committee and the slate of officers that has been presented to you. Is there anyone that has any additions and/or individuals they would like to put up for any of the positions? Hearing none and seeing some nods like this, then I would...
I move that we cast a unanimous ballot for the slate as presented.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded that we cast a unanimous ballot for the slate that was selected. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. That's very, very rapid.
Okay.
What is going on? Come on. Hey.
Come on, guys, line up here. Let's get going. Come on, let's go. Come on, guys, get in line here. Let's go.
Some of you are not moving very
loud. I don't know. Come on, get in line. Come on, let's go. Come on.
I'm old. I'm sorry. We have a business meeting going on
Listen
here.
here, Mr.
We'd like
Ex-President, have
to
a
make
seat,
it.
please, right over here. Now, wait a minute, guys.
Stop the show.
Yeah, come on.
Come over here. Let's get this. Let's get in line. S-O-L-I, that's it. We're solid.
But this is the Linnell Family Association meeting. We
No,
have some more things we want to take care of here.
We're mounting an unfriendly takeover of this Linnell Family Association. These are spouses of Linnell intermarried descendants. And we just want you to know.
Spouses of or spouses?
All right, guys. Now, let's get this thing underway. We don't have any flag salutes, no invocations, none of this treasurer's reports, but we do have our charter. Ladies and gentlemen,
We're not Linnell, but what the heck? We're not as well as you can expect. With speakers and pictures and t-shirts and hats. We're loaded with souvenirs, this is and that's. The genuine family come down from old Bob. These 300 years has become quite a lot. Our cousins are pretty and some pretty smart. So we're glad to get with them and have a small heart. And if we can't be one, let us tell you this. We'll get there by wedding and win hit or miss. Oh, for crying out loud. Come on, guys. All right, here we go. Well, our disorganization is underway. Let me first call for business. Impeach the chairman. A party, all right.
Pizza, let's just
Time for refreshment.
let's tax all the Linnells.
Double the dues. Oh,
Let's
come
just
on,
adjourn.
guys. You're sounding like a bunch of Linnells now, I can tell you that. Let's get some order into this disorganization.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why would we want to do that? Adjourn.
Yeah. Let's have a
Weird.
party.
I got a motion to make. Okay?
What? Yeah.
I move we make our disorganization very exclusive, limiting membership only to those who are 1, spouses of Linnells, 2, and who can prove that they never had any ancestors, whatever, that ever got mixed up with these descendants of Robert L. And you gotta provide genealogical proof with PIN numbers.
I second that.
Oh, and let me add to this amendment, if I may. I almost forgot that we publish our own hard copy book of the genealogy for all non-descendants and charge $52.
All right, now wait. Let me see if I get this thing straight. We had a motion, it was seconded, it was booed, it was thirded, it was amended, it was fourth. All those in favor say aye. I guess that passes. Now, let's see here. What else do we have? Any other business?
I want to run for treasurer. Now listen, I charge dues only to Linnell. Spouses ride free, see?
That's good.
Let's see, life membership 79 cents.
Lots of money, all right.
4 equal installments.
Here.
Annual dues for family 18 cents, annual dues for singles 17 cents. I move it.
I second it. All in favor? Aye. Okay. What else we got here?
Well, we've got to have a motto for our disorganization.
A motto.
Yeah, and in Latin, sort of into fancy and into licorice. I got one, and it's in Latin. Patientia perseverantia, which means keep your cool and hang in there.
All right.
All right, that one's voted down. Come on, you clowns, let's get to order here. Now, the real order of the day is, how do we take over this family association? The mugs, the pins, the treasury, the newsletter, the books. I mean, let's get going.
We're ready.
Well, I move we hold our next reunion in Hawaii.
I move we establish another membership category for non-Linnells who are non-spouses too.
Let's have a pizza party.
Modern dance.
Invite Hillary.
And Hillary, yes.
All right, now you're really out of order. You've gone too far. That's enough. The meeting is adjourned. You're all dismissed. Let's go.
But
Genuine family,
came
down from old Bob.
These
300 years have become quite a mob. Our cousins are pretty and some pretty smart. So we're glad to be with them and have a small part. If I cannot be one, then let me say this. I'll get their identity and win it or miss. Those of you that may not have recognized, that was the work of Jason. When I was so rudely interrupted, just the last thing that if anybody has any question about schedule, my clock says 11:15, but it's really 11:45, right? 12:30 is lunch at Hoffman Hall again. The tours this afternoon, if you have any question on those, I hope that Rachel can answer.
Stand up, Marie.
There are some sign-up sheets that are in the family room. I think 2:30 and 3 o'clock times are all filled up right now. I don't have them with me, so I can't tell you what time you signed up for. The way that you get to the Linnell farm from here, you go down to, you want to look at your map? Main Street is the road that you would go through, past the cemetery, across an overpass that where the freeway goes under. It's actually Highway 37. Up a hill, and at the bottom of that hill, on the right-hand side, is where the Linnell farm is. There is a picture on page 68 in your book of the house. You can't really see it from the road. It's tree covered. There's a white picket fence around it and a big green barn on the right-hand side, Rachel, is that right?
Yes.
The house is a central entry home brick. You are to drive in and go to the back entrance, please. And please go on your scheduled time. It takes about an hour for the tour. So there will be 2 groups there of 30, 15 at a time during that hour. So don't be concerned if there seem to be more people than what the 15 are. We'd like to meet in the parking lot behind the dormitory that you're staying in so that we can carpool.
Is the departure time 2:30 from the...
It's from 2, it's every half an hour.
But the time that is listed, that's when we need the parking lot, not when we need it at the park.
The time that you sign up for is when you should come to the parking lot.
Oh.
All right? So if you're signed up for 2:30, you should be in the parking lot at 2:30 so that if you need a ride or we can carpool, that would be a good thing to do. I think 2:30, one of the times there are 2 vans that are going, so there will be enough transportation in those 2 vans so no one else has to take a car unless they want to go somewhere else from the farm. I think that's all is that all I need to know? Okay, anything else? We have to get the sign-up sheets to find out what time it is, and they're in the van. I think.
Lunch then, 12:30 to 1, I believe is what we're scheduled. Try to stay on, as you're going into that eating area, try to stay on the right-hand side of that so we can be out and you can hear and see everything rather than having some posts in your way. If you sit in the seats and chairs along, or the tables along that outside wall on your left as you're walking into that eating area, it'd be a little harder to hear and see what's going on tonight. Following the dinner, then, we will be back here in Herrick for the a family album program entitled Family Album.
And you want to remind people again that the time is at 8 o'clock here, rather than the 7:30 that showed originally on your schedule.
It's not, that's not what it says on the schedule now, but we should be at 8 o'clock. The movement thing is just too difficult to get done in that time. All right? Any other questions? If not, any purchases that you want to make can be made back in the family room after lunch, I would assume, but...
I'd like to move that we extend a vote of thanks to Judy and all of the officers for the work they've done this year.
Thank you. Now take your spoiled people and leave. No, you're welcome to stay here.